Welcome to the NACE Sunryz RNG Contractor and Visitor Safety Orientation. Safety really is our top priority on our sites, and the purpose of this briefing is to familiarize site visitors and contractors with our plant layout, emergency procedures, and safety standards. This safety briefing is good for 1 year. There will be a brief quiz at the end of this presentation. Please refer any questions to your NACE site contact. Working safely is everyone's job, and if any incident occurs, please report it immediately. If you need something, ask plant personnel. If you don't know, ask, and if it doesn't look right, ask. Do not operate any plant valves or plant equipment, and advise plant personnel for assistance to assure proper permitting procedures are followed and in place. A NACE employee will be assigned as primary contact for all visitors and contractors. All visitors must sign in and out when coming and going from the site, even if just for lunch. All visitors will be made aware of emergency equipment locations, such as first aid kits, eye washes, safety showers, fire extinguishers, and more. Your NACE contact will discuss emergency procedures with you on your arrival to the site, including what to do and where to go for various types of emergencies. NACE reserves the right to conduct searches and inspections of plant property or any part of an individual's property that is brought onto the plant site. All activities are monitored and recorded by video camera. Parking is provided for all contractors. NACE does not assume any responsibility in connection with the use of the parking areas, nor any risk for loss or damages as a result of using this facility. Vehicles allowed access into the plant shall not block emergency egress routes. Please make a note of these important emergency site contacts. James Ames, Process Operator 3, 559-307-5357. Tyler Blesh, INC Technician, and his number is to be announced. Jack Pearson, Area Manager at 269-254-5482. Eric Woods, Operations Director, 804-691-2256. Connie Muncie, NACE Corporate Safety Manager, 425-395-5363. Any injury, illness, fire, vehicle accident, property damage, or other incident must be reported immediately to your NACE site contact. An initial written report will be required by the end of the shift. An accident investigation report with corrective action will be required within 2 weeks of the occurrence. Immediately notify your NACE contact of any OSHA visit or OSHA complaint. Fire extinguishers are located throughout the site and on all mobile equipment. In case of a small fire, all employees or visitors who are trained in fire extinguisher use are authorized to use these extinguishers. Immediately notify your host that you have used an extinguisher to put out a fire. If the fire extinguisher does not put out the fire, or if it is unsafe to put out the fire, as is going to be the case in the majority of our plants, as it is comprised of many Class 1 areas with flammable gas present, you will simply safely evacuate the area to the site evacuation point and notify your host to call the local fire department. Do not block access to fire extinguishers. Contractors are required to supply their own fire extinguishers when performing hot work. Smoking on the Sunryz NACE property is prohibited. The site, again, is primarily comprised of a Class 1 area with flammable gas present. First aid and bloodborne pathogen kits are located at all NACE sites. Your host will provide you with their locations. When you use an item from the first aid kit, you must report it to your NACE contact. Emergency eye wash and safety showers are provided for your safety in all locations where corrosive chemicals may be present. Please make yourself familiar with the locations of any of these units in your work area, and do not block access to these units. Never exceed a speed of 10 miles per hour when driving on any NACE site. Note that no drugs or alcohol will be permitted at this location, and no firearms are permitted, and no fighting or aggressive behavior would be permitted. These would all be causes for possible elimination from the site. Required personal protective equipment on this site will consist of steel-toed safety boots, safety glasses with side shields, a type 1 or 2 Class E hard hat, and a high visibility vest. This is all required anytime you are on the site. Hearing protection might also be required in various areas that are posted with this requirement. Please remain away from areas that are posted with danger high voltage signs. The wearing of ANSI-approved high visibility vests is required at all times. While walking the site, remain alert to the ever-present hazards of truck and vehicular traffic, and be particularly careful walking on or across drives near blind corners. All electrical equipment must be properly insulated and have GFCI protection. Use of properly rated explosion-proof or non-spark producing tools and equipment where required. Obey all signage and stay out of restricted areas. Report all incidents, injuries, accidents, near misses, emergencies, and unsafe conditions to your contact as soon as possible. Again, preliminary reports are due by the end of the work shift. There are a wide variety of hazards on this site. A partial list of these will include high pressure natural gas and propane, biogas having explosivity and fire hazards. This gas contains no odorant, so it will give you no olfactory warning of its presence. High voltage electricity, high pressure and temperature steam and water, hot surfaces, fuel oil, waste oil, and chemicals, some may be corrosive. Remotely started rotating equipment and mechanical hazards. Biological hazards, anaerobic digester feedstock and manure, contains a wide variety of bacteria and parasites, viruses, and fungi. Exposure may be through contact or inhalation of aerosols. Confined space hazards, atmospheric hazards, including but not limited to carbon monoxide, methane, hydrogen sulfide, low oxygen levels, explosivity hazards, and ammonia. Lockout tagout hazards, fall hazards, traffic hazards, and noise. Use of forklift. NACE equipment must not be used without authorization by your NACE contact and without demonstration of competence on that piece of equipment and/or signing a form that accepts responsibility for the equipment if the site allows. Contractors must designate 1 employee per shift that will be responsible for forklift duties, and only that individual will be permitted to operate the forklift. Fall protection. NACE requires the use of fall protection when working at heights. Fall protection is required when there is a potential fall from 4 feet height above a walking or working surface. Do not mix rigging equipment with fall protection personal protective equipment. Ensure anchor points are capable of holding 5,000 pounds. If you have a question about a tie-off point, please ask. Inspect every piece of equipment every time you use it. Contractors are required to provide their own personal protective equipment. Taking chances and climbing and working without proper fall protection equipment will not be tolerated. And there are no open holes greater than 2 inches in least dimension permitted at the site. Work permits are required for all contractor jobs. Additional permits may be required when additional hazards are present. Examples would include lockout tagout, confined space entry, hot work, energized electrical work, or excavation permits. A job hazard analysis must be completed for each permit. Be sure to understand the hazards and risks associated with your work and remove them before an incident occurs. Caution safety tape barricades will have yellow tape with caution in black letters. This is used when a warning barrier is needed, but imminent danger does not exist. The barrier will prevent entry from all directions and will have an informational tag affixed. Employees may enter the area after determining the conditions for safe entry exist. Examples include when caution tape is used, when open manholes, exposed open ditches and excavations, hot work areas, swing radius of rotating structure cranes, etc. are present. See the affixed tag for details. Danger tape. Danger safety tape barricades have red tape with danger in black lettering. This is used only when imminent danger, injury, or life-threatening conditions exist. The barrier will prevent entry from all directions and will have an informational tag affixed. To be clear, Workers may not enter the area unless they have obtained permission from the person in charge. They shall cross the barrier only after verifying the proper safety precautions have been taken. An unauthorized crossing of a danger barrier may result in dismissal from the site. Examples of when danger tape is used would include open electrical panels, material drop zones, hazardous overhead work, and the like. See the affixed tag for details. Good housekeeping is vital to maintaining a safe site, and it's everyone's job. Be sure to maintain good housekeeping in your work area. Keep emergency egress paths clear and report any housekeeping issues to your site contact. Your job is not complete until you have maintained housekeeping in your work area. Contractors are required to keep facilities in a good state of repair. Lockout tagout permits are issued through your NACE contact. All contractors will have a NACE contact person for the job, and that person must be signed on to the job as long as the contractor is signed on. All isolation points at NACE are locked. All isolation locks are red in color and are accompanied by a danger tag. Keys for the isolation locks are returned to the control room and placed in the lockbox specified for that lotto. Everyone who signs onto that lotto will be issued a lock that they must place onto the lockbox. Contractors should use their own locks, and the site will issue locks if necessary, but they will not do so as a general rule. The key for your lock is kept with you until you sign off on the lotto. All personal locks must be removed at the end of your shift. A contractor foreman may sign on and place a lock onto the lotto lockbox representing his crew, but then his key must be placed into a separate contractor lockbox onto which each and every crew member places their own lock. The contractor foreman is then in control of that separate contractor lockbox. Remember to sign off the lotto when you are done with the job. And to be clear, unauthorized removal of any tag or lock is grounds for immediately removal from a NACE site. For hot work, you'll need a permit for any hot work conducted outside of the designated areas. Adequate ventilation will be provided whenever welding or cutting in a confined space occurs. Anyone entering a confined space must follow the requirements of SMP 7 confined space entry. Prior to cutting or burning in elevated areas, any equipment below shall be protected from sparks and slag. Areas around the hot work shall be inspected for combustible materials and removed or protected prior to any hot work. Wear appropriate PPE and make sure your job does not impact someone else. Use protective barriers if necessary. A hot work permit is required for all work except for areas designated for that use, but even those areas must be inspected prior to use. The hot work permit must be posted in the area where the hot work is being performed. And if you are arc welding, do not leave electrodes and holders when the weld is finished, as this constitutes a fire hazard. Class 1 electrically classified areas at this site are marked to warn of explosion hazards. In these areas, no cell phones will be present and no smoking, spark-producing, or flame-producing activities will be permitted. All personnel in Class 1 rated areas must wear Class 1 rated, bump-tested, calibrated personal gas monitors due to the potential for leaks. Confined space entry. All confined spaces are identified with signage. Do not enter a space until the space has been authorized for entry and a permit has been issued and signed. Permits are issued through your NACE point of contact. If all hazards can be removed, the space may be reclassified to a non-permit space, and continuous monitoring with the calibrated air gas monitor is required for all occupied spaces. At any time and in any space, if anything smells, feels, or seems wrong in the space, or obviously if a gas monitor is alarming, leave the space immediately and notify your NACE point of contact. Contractor personnel will comply with all provisions of the established confined space entry procedure and receive permission from plant personnel before entering any confined space. Only those contractors who have been trained in confined space entry may enter a confined space, and they may only enter the confined space in particular that they have been permitted for. Hazard communication. You have a right to know the hazards of chemicals you work with. Safety data sheets are required for all chemicals. NACE has safety data sheets for all of our chemicals, and if you need a copy, simply ask your NACE contact for one. You likewise will need to have safety data sheets for all the chemicals you bring on site. And all of your containers will have to be labeled with the contents and the hazards, as well as the PPE requirements for the chemical, as required by the OSHA Globally Harmonized System ASCOM standard. If you bring chemicals on site and you do not use them up, you must remove them for proper disposal, and you may not leave them behind. Conduct daily crew meetings with site operations. This is going to allow everyone to provide their input. We'll make sure that everyone knows what's happening for the day and that you understand the hazards presented and that you coordinate with operations. You will get your permits for the day and have those available at the job site. In fact, you will post your permits at the job site. And whenever conditions change, stop work and contact your NACE contact to identify whether updates to your permits are required. To wrap up, working safely is a part of your job. Do not operate valves or equipment without prior authorization and not without proper permits in place. If something happens, report it immediately. If you need something, ask. If you don't know something or something just doesn't look right, ask. And use your stop work authority as needed. Please work safely and come back tomorrow. Please be sure to contact your NACE point of contact with any additional questions. You will now be directed to complete a short quiz. And thank you very much for watching our briefing.